when you talk about the unsung hero, what you see a lot is this hero being sung, but when they can be well gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'd be as if they built a statue of Frodo, in Hobbiton after he had left. So he is boated off, and then now we don't have to see him
Now
at the
we'll talk
pub
about it.
where he's being awkward and he doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
We see him with the weight of the world sitting on him, and he's kind of a buzzkill to be around. So we can build we can build a statue to him after he's out. But we do this with the wild prophets. So the really uncouth guy who's fearless, does the right thing, and is not doing it for praise. He's not doing it to make anybody
I feel
like him.
When he's there's just a reminder that you were wrong.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
People don't like that.
So Frodo could easily have become the villain of the next story because he did this amazing thing and nobody appreciated it.
And no one liked it.
Uh-huh.
Like, he didn't get any pats on the back, like nothing. Like, he actually just suffered.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
Welcome to SASF, girls. Brian Cole is out because he's decided to have a baby. And rather than waiting for him to be done having a baby, I'm bringing two podcast rookies to the show. So we'll see how you do. Just remember that whatever you say, you're saying to millions of people. And then you're fine.
That's super reassuring.
Yeah.
So
we love accountability.
Don't talk about your professors. Don't, anything that you want, anything that you say is, canon will be held against you for all eternity. It's perfect.
Huzzah.
But mostly what I just do is I come in here and I talk to Brian about whatever Brian wants to talk about. And very quickly you ignore the headsets and the microphones and you just pretend like no one else is here and you have a conversation. So that's kind of what I think we should do. So what do you girls want to talk about? Pull the microphone up to your mouth there.
Okay.
You rookie. Like get it all the way up in here.
All the way up?
Yeah, let's get it up.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes. Hello, Lucia. I've got Ameera. They're here to share with the world their thoughts on what?
I don't like this.
I did threaten to talk about Children of Men, the lamp pick, which they have opinions about, but we haven't watched it recently together. We will. And I think Brian would have his feelings hurt a little bit if we did it without him. So we're gonna wait. Even though he's off having a baby and I have my babies on the show, so we're set. We really are set. What we could do is we could tell track stories.
I don't know if we want to tell those.
No, we're not going to actually.
No.
That was a joke.
No.
It was a paternal joke. I could tell child rearing stories about the two of you. It'd be perfect. How about we start with you just telling me what you're reading right now? Start with Ameera. What are you reading right now?
I'm in between books. I just finished 3 murder mysteries. Back to back.
Which 3 murder mysteries?
And
who did it?
A P.D. James book.
Which one?
You can't say who did it. I haven't read it.
The Murder Room, I
think.
think.
If you'd listen to the podcast, Lucy, you know we don't care about spoilers. The Murder Room?
Yes.
Okay, and then?
An Agatha Christy, which name I forgot. And then Josephine Tay, Miss Pym Disposes, I think.
Tell us about Josephine Tay a little bit. Have you read these?
Nope.
I know
she doesn't read murder mysteries.
I don't.
Lucia was my child who did not like to eat anything green. And so there was one legendary story in the family of when she wouldn't eat top ramen because there was too much green in it because she could see a spice. Now, people who know.
Not eating the green.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. Because I wrote a paper on the superiority of the American detective to the British detective.
Have you read 2 American detective authors?
Maybe.
yeah. So Lucia.
But I read a lot of their books, though.
That does not
Lucia
count.
is very prejudicial. She's very prejudicial.
Yes.
And so even though she now eats green things, and there's various viral things on the internet about how terrible I was as a father. In training your appetites.
Can't disagree with those.
Yeah, those are all true, but you still can be that way about stories, genres, things you just don't. Like, I just won't eat the green. I won't read a detective novel. Now, this is not a big deal, but Ameera does read detective novels.
I do.
So tell us about Josephine Tay.
Well, this is a new one for me. I've never read it before. And it's apparently, I think she has more than one book with this character, Miss Pym.
Okay.
Who's kind of a middle-aged to older woman who read a ton of psychology books and realized she hated all of them. So wrote her own with her own opinions. It went like super big, became famous. And so her detective experience is using her like kind of psychology, and she absolutely failed and was wrong about everything. And that's kind of the character.
That's the character.
Mhm.
And why do you like this?
Because it's funny.
It sounds kind of funny.
No, it's
Lucy's sold. She's going to read a detective novel.
She should. Well, I often like detective stories because of the characters, not because of the actual plot or like you're trying to figure out who did it. I think a lot of them, they have to be very descriptive to like give you a picture of the people, especially when you have things like interviews or the person meeting someone. Having a detective character is really helpful when you're getting like descriptives of a person because they're trying to observe, they're trying to like see everything. And so I like that. You
like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, I can eat a detective novel like a Dorito.
They're kind of Doritos.
Sometimes, some of them are.
Josephine Tey has some that are not Doritos, some that are more interesting. This was definitely a Dorito.
Okay, but a good Dorito, a wholesome, factory produced.
Well, it's always enjoyable seeing the person who's super into their like psychology just not getting it.
So it's more fun seeing somebody fail.
Occasionally.
Yeah. And Lucia, why do you not like detective fiction? What is the basis of this prejudice?
Well, what I say is that they're more puzzles than stories. And I'm fine with people liking puzzles, but I wanted a story. And crime in the real world doesn't work like that, where the book is deliberately trying to like throw little side things and hints, and you're trying to figure it out.
You're
it's a puzzle.
Talking about Christie. You're talking about Agatha Christie.
I'm talking about the Detective Club of England. They have rules that they follow. But what Ameera says, it's not totally wrong. It's that I can't guess it ever.
And Ameera just said she likes the characters. She likes the character work of detective fiction, not the puzzle.
Yeah, I can.
So do you really care about who did it? Or do you like...
Well, that's interesting because it's part of their character.
And have you read Maisie Dobbs?
I have.
Okay. Where do you slot Maisie Dobbs?
I haven't read it for a while. I read it.
But is it detective-y? It is kind of.
It's detective-y, but it's not as much about the mystery. I feel like it's more about...
Even more character?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with Ameera on the characters. It's the place where I don't like them is in the little puzzle plots.
So what I need to do is make you put together more puzzles. I should just buy you some 500-piece puzzles and start there.
Cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah, but you say that, but then you didn't make it through a P.D. James book where it's not about the puzzle like at all.
Which one did she not make it through?
Certain Truth.
Since we're shaming each other.
No, it's called something else.
A Certain Justice, I think.
That's right. It was 2 years ago and she's still holding it over my head.
Because she never finished it. So I still can.
I don't know where the copy is.
Until you finish it. You know,
I'm holding it over your head.
I was reading it at the lake and then I went home early and I left it with you because you wanted to read it and I haven't seen the book since. That's what happened, Ameera.
It's on the shelf.
And you
Not my fault.
You get to keep holding it over her head, as you said, because you can.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's pivot to fantasy, which is what you like to read.
I've never held anything over her head before.
You never. So
I'm the
fantasy.
One. I'm reading Raising Steam by Terry Pratchett.
Yes, Raising Steam. And what's the review?
It's the third book of the Moist von Lipwig trilogy, and it's not the best one, but similar to Ameera's adoration of the detective characters.
Okay, adoration is a strong word.
Adoration of the detective characters. That's a big reason why I love Terry Pratchett is the characters. So even if I don't think it's his best book, the characters are.
But do you
nice.
love his characters, or do you just like Terry Pratchett?
Well, I like
meaning
Terry
him.
Pratchett.
He the character, the author.
He the character, yeah, but him the character is making quite a number of wackos.
Okay, so let's talk about Pratchett a little bit because you both read a fair amount of Pratchett.
Yes.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them.
I have not read all of them.
I've read a number, not all. Top characters from Pratchett.
Captain Carrot.
Samuel Vimes.
Okay, so Carrot and Vimes are two very different types from Pratchett. How would you describe Carrot?
Well, Carrot he's like the rightful heir to the throne in Ankh-Morpork, but he doesn't take the throne. He was raised by dwarves, so he.
But how do you describe the character? That's all peripheral. That's
Okay.
You are very into detective fiction. 'Cause this is all.
Okay.
This is
You're
all.
like, let me set the scene.
Yeah, this is all the surrounding. So, Carrot. Describe Carrot, the man in the room. If he came in and sat down, what would he be like?
Well, he's a presence. So they say that he bends the room around him. So you see him. He like wears the.
He wears
scene.
the room.
Yeah, he wears the room. He's big. He's a redhead.
Built like a Greek god.
Is what it describes him as. He's very literal, and like he can't take things metaphorically at all. Straight laced, like follows the rules, but also loves the rules and makes everyone else love them too.
Yeah, he's kind of dumb.
Oh yeah. Well, he's not dumb.
That's
he's
the question.
Simple. That's what
the
he
question.
says.
Is he as dumb as he seems?
Yes.
You never know.
He's
So-
not. He's what it says. He's not
so
dumb.
Is he? Where
no.
do you stand on that? Is Carrot
I say
dumb?
he's not dumb. I say he's simple. So I think this could be lots of guys. They're not complicated.
Let's gender this whole
Yes,
conversation.
let's do it.
So guys
it's not complicated, but that doesn't mean he's stupid. It's just he has his rules and he follows them. It's not
Isn't that dumb?
not necessarily.
Not when they're the right rules.
Okay. So Carrot you are of the opinion that Captain Carrot is not dumb.
He's not dumb.
He's just very, very simple.
Yes.
Okay. But he solves complex things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he does it by
not
being-
getting distracted.
by
By
being
everybody
simple.
being
He
complicated.
also makes everyone else simple when he's talking to them. Like they want to please him. Like they want to make
They simplify.
yes.
Okay. Interesting. So that's Carrot. You like Carrot. He's
I
one
do.
of your favorite characters. And Sam Vimes.
Is a thug. Well, that's in the book The Night Watch. You get Sam Vimes described by another very intelligent character, Vetinari. And he's described as a thug. You can see his muscles thinking for him, but he stops them at the last moment and he is master over them. And so he is similar to Carrot. He's dumb in some ways, but
Is he, or is he just a guy, as we've already established?
he's dumb in some ways. But he's, as his arc progresses, he becomes like very, very disciplined and very driven for others, even though he is a completely unappreciated character by most like other characters.
He's very gauche and functions in high society,
Yeah. But
which we're all drawn to. So I think in terms of wish fulfillment, I think we all like the idea of people being in rooms they shouldn't be in and just not
Mhm.
obeying those rules. And so that's Carrot. That is Vimes too.
Yep.
They're both examples of guys who take their own rules with them into any other
and
environment.
they cannot be peer pressured into
Yeah.
changing at all. But Vimes, he always does what needs to be done, no matter what. And that is a character that I really like because I don't know, there's this trope that I adore, which is the unsung hero, is because there's so
a
much
trope that you adore. You'll have to unpack that a little bit.
Oh,
Go
really?
ahead.
She actually adores this.
I
Okay.
legitimately
So-
adore this trope.
So let's talk about this for a minute. Unsung
So-
hero trope is what? Let's describe
The
the trope.
unsung hero is the person who does what is right for others and receives nothing for it. Sometimes it's just nothing and sometimes it's actual hatred, but there is no
The
benefit
Incredibles.
in this life. There
Yes.
is no award in this life for what they are doing and they still do it. Because I think that's a very important trope in
Give me
this
some
culture.
examples.
I'll give you some examples.
Yeah.
But just one of the reasons that I like it first is the contrast to what everybody does in this culture right now, where everyone's demanding satisfaction, like everyone's demanding applause. And I don't think
Likes, please like and share.
yeah, and it can be places where you legitimately deserve it, but is something selfless if you're actively demanding a prize for it. And everybody's like, we need our recognition. We need the prize. We need to be acknowledged for all I'm doing for others. But that shouldn't be why you're doing it. So there's a definite attraction to that person who will do it completely without benefits. So one trope that I love is, well, example of this trope, is Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings, where he had the heaviest burden.
Yeah.
And it was the least glamorous out of all of them.
Yeah.
He just had to hurt for a whole journey. All he's doing is hurting and not stopping.
Yep.
And at the end, they all go back to the Shire, and the stupid little people are all, who are precious, all of them, but the stupid little people
hobbits
are really excited about Merry and Pippin and even Sam, because like they had the more glamorous jobs. Like Merry and Pippin, they got taller. Wow. And they were fighting, and it's just all, they're getting a ton of attention and positivity, and Frodo just doesn't fit anymore. And he doesn't have a home anymore. And he doesn't really have friends anymore. Like even with the companions who were there with him did not go through what he went through. And what he went through didn't get the reaction from the people that everybody else is getting.
Basically his sacrifice didn't stop.
Exactly.
Afterwards, yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like a true sacrifice might be permanent in that way.
Yep.
So
I think that this is informed by Tolkien's experience with veterans in combat and what it's actually like, and what your great-grandfathers described as guys coming back from World War II. And this, everybody knows this happened in Vietnam and Korea as well, but people coming back from World War II and could not re-enter.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had, I remember my grandmother describing it in terms of how sock hop social the world was, just so silly. And, it was just, you had the, really kind of like you have the ice cream shop. You're going to go down to get a soda, get a root beer float. You're going to do these things that we all think of from late 30s and into the 40s as they're coming of age, all these young people. And then the girls had all these guys leave, and they went off and experienced hell on earth for a very long time. And the girls suffered. They lost, guys died over there, and there's a lot of emotional pain, but they were mostly just losing their normal lives. And a lot of them were very eager to try to get it back right when the guys came home. And so I remember my grandmother describing just the pettiness of just trying to get these little parties up and going again, and just trying to get back into
just aren't the same
getting
anymore.
into the froth. And the guys couldn't, they just were unable to do that. And I think that is a little bit of what you're pointing out in Frodo, which is incidentally, as a kid, was one of my least favorite things about the story. And this is 5th grade me, when I adored these and really was reading Tolkien like mad, that just bummed me out. It bummed me out that Frodo was back and I was going to go off to the Grey Havens, and like, what a giant bummer this is, because I wanted it to just, I wanted to be the Merry and Pippin. Like, we're taller, we fought.
Songs of glory.
Yeah, and Frodo's line, actually, his thread interested me the least. Éomer was, Faramir and Éomer were my favorite characters, and, 5th grader. It makes sense. 5th grade boy. Simple, not stupid.
I loved it when I read it, and it did make me cry. And I don't cry at books, really. Yeah. But I just really like that story, that character, and I find it to be really powerful, and I find it to ring really true.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate selflessness. And what's funny is with Frodo is he kind of gets that from the audience too, where the amount of people I've heard is like, well, Frodo's not even actually a main character of the series because Sam's way better. And I'm like, guys, he had a hard enough time in the story.
Yeah. That is funny.
I feel like it's also one of the reasons why I really dislike a lot of like villain like backstories where they have them be that character, but it's like an excuse for them to turn bad and it justifies it.
It's the villain backstory.
Yeah. And so like it's the real hero who doesn't turn bad.
So basically that's an interesting point. So Frodo could easily have become the villain of the next story because he did this amazing thing and nobody appreciated it.
And no one liked it. Like he didn't get any pats on the back, like nothing. Like he actually just suffered, like she said. And I feel like most people are like, this is the start of my villain arc,
Yeah.
Like I was hurt. So
Somebody gives into envy, and
Yes.
so envy can show up anywhere. But you could be the hero and be insufficiently celebrated,
yes.
and envy the frivolity of others.
Ameera and I actually just talked about this recently. We were talking about villain backstories because it's such a trend these days. But what we kind of concluded is that when you have a true villain backstory, like not just the Cruella type thing, whereas they kind of made her a good guy, and now we just simply didn't have a villain. When you
run
have
with me. I have this idea. What if they were actually the protagonist?
Yeah, no.
Like, let's
But
say
I
they're
think
not
when they
evil.
do it right, when they do it right, the backstory often looks something like Frodo's. Pain and lack of appreciation. But what we said was telling these stories correctly is dangerous because that is not what we should be concluding from those stories. We need to be encouraging the person who will be a hero from that. Because
Like, let's have a role model that just
Exactly.
turns evil with the lack of appreciation. of person.
yeah.
Let's
And
do that.
It can be legitimately hard, but I want to see more characters that have the villain backstory and choose not to be
Okay.
villains.
So I want to go back and finish your thought, though. You were talking about the trope of the unsung hero.
Yeah. So
And I asked for examples, and you give me Frodo.
Frodo, but
But
I
take it
get
back to
that
Pratchett, too.
from Sam Vimes
Okay.
because he is legitimately hated by a lot of people. Like he has his loyal friends, but he is really hated by the city as a whole. And like you said, a lot of the nobility, the upper crust that he doesn't fit into. So people are constantly attacking him, even though nothing he's doing is for himself. It's like he is that thug character that he likes getting in tussles, so it's not like he wouldn't be fighting around at all if he was just living for himself. But he goes through a lot of brutal hardships for other people just to be faced with hatred again. The one story that Terry Pratchett references a lot, even though it's not like in his books, is Samuel Vimes' ancestor, Stoneface Vimes, chopped off the head of a king.
Yeah.
Who was despicably evil, like pedo, torturer.
Lorenzo the Kind.
Yeah, Lorenzo the Kind.
Just Terry Pratchett's amazing.
Yes,
His
he
name's
is.
Lorenzo the Kind.
Yeah, and people hate Stoneface. They always talk about him like this evil villain from history for being the only one willing to kill this royal villain.
Yeah.
Horrible person. And Samuel Vimes really stands by that, and people like to say he's living in that tradition. And so people are constantly worried about him being too much, too gnarly, too bad when he knows that he's fighting against things that are worse.
So is this Terry Pratchett taking the side of Cromwell?
Yes.
It sounds like it. It's like not super subtle.
Just yes.
Big fan of Cromwell over there.
He has
Pratchett.
some
Like,
not
let's
so
go kill kings.
He has some not so subtle references to real history.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
so that's a big reason I like him, other than just him being a fun personality who's salty and
I think
willing to fight,
it's
like-
interesting that both of you, I don't know what this tells me about my daughters, that both of you chose what I would describe as main characters.
My favorite character, though, is not Carrot.
Okay.
He's
I said,
Vetinari.
okay. There you go. I was gonna
Veterinary
say-
is number
You
2
just
for
said
me.
what's a fun character in Pratchett.
Okay.
So
yeah, okay, we started there. So Carrot and Vimes, those are leads. But if most times when you think favorite character, people go to secondary characters because they get to be such strong flavors. They get to be that side dish that's really pops.
I think that's true for many books and movies, but not as much Pratchett. Like most places I'd look, I'd pick a side character, but Pratchett has such strong flavors as main characters.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
you don't really have that.
So would you
Contrast.
prefer Vimes and Carrot over, Granny Weatherwax and
Nope.
Tiffany? And okay.
yes.
Granny
I
is
would.
in my top 5.
Okay, so
And Granny's not a side character. She's a main character
Sure.
in multiple books.
yeah, well, Pratchett wrote two.
Lucia loves Granny Weatherwax.
I am currently illustrating just a couple pages of graphic novel from Witches Abroad
I
of
think-
Granny because
no.
she's badass.
I think
Naughty word from
Wait,
Lucia.
I think she just knows that if it was a play, she would be Granny Weatherwax.
No.
Because she's typecast.
Okay, so hold on. Let's go.
Honored to be Granny Weatherwax.
Let's go. Yes, let's go top 5 characters, and these
Top
don't have
5,
to be
okay.
accurate, but just the first 5 that you like. that you can
Veterinary,
think
Carrot, Vimes. Oh, let me think.
of. Cut me on throat, Dibbler.
He's pretty funny.
He's funny.
Oh,
Not Death.
I like Death. I think
Death is amazing. Okay,
Death is fabulous.
Death of Rats is the best.
Squeak.
Okay, so Lucia,
Oh, Dangerous Beans.
Dangerous Beans.
Dangerous Beans is excellent.
Dangerous
Dangerous
Beans.
Beans.
Okay.
Dangerous Beans is
She's like-
from The Amazing
Maurice.
Maurice
And His Educated
Rodents,
Rodents.
which should be read.
By
So-
everyone.
Or yeah, by everybody. Dangerous Beans, one of the best character
Yes.
names of all time. And actually, what do you guys think of the movie?
B plus, B
I mean-
minus. I don't know, somewhere in the B's. It
Worth watching.
it was
It was
fun.
kind of like, past a 90
I
minutes.
don't think it would hurt you.
I think it's a lot more bland than Terry Pratchett, so that can be a little bit
Yeah,
sad given how
not
much
bland.
zing his book had, but it's still like fun and it's a very creative idea.
Yeah. So The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents and Dangerous Beans is in there
Mhm.
So-
as like a substitute for one of those.
Dibbler. Substitute
For
for
Dibbler.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I counted Dibbler, but it's okay.
Yes, you did.
Nah.
Vimes, as I said, it's one of my top. Veterinary, Granny Weatherwax, and now I gotta think a little bit.
Perdita.
No.
So we got 2 left.
Perdita's great, but no. I might put Death up there too.
Death or just Death of Rats?
I feel like they're a package deal. Can they be a
Okay,
package
Death.
deal?
All the deaths.
I feel like I want to pick a funky little side character, but it might just be Moist.
Moist, but why not Tiffany? What's wrong with Tiffany?
I like her, but she has less to her than the rest of the Terry Pratchett. Well, less to her is wrong. I would say she's more nuanced and realistic a person than some of his other characters.
Less of a caricature.
And so you don't like her.
No, but when I'm
like
looking
real people, Dad.
no, but everyone else is
My
such,
problem
like,
with her is she's more accurately reflective of a human.
well, his style is this satirical
Yeah.
caricature, like fantasy world, and I love it because a lot of it is very, very real, but it's exaggerated to be seen clearly. So I find him to be a really wise and observant writer, but the Tiffany Aching series is just a little bit less of that flavor. The first book definitely is still, but I basically think of it as a separate series to the Discworld, even though it's in the same world, just because it has like this darker, more realistic,
Yeah.
more nuanced feel. And I really like it, but I also think that what I like about Tiffany, I like about Granny Weatherwax, and I like Granny Weatherwax more.
okay.
So if I'm like doing the top 5,
You
because-
both read Nation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I adore that book.
Okay. And you?
Oh,
How do
I
you
said
feel about-
adore again.
Yeah, it's fine. It's allowed. You can adore more than one thing.
I think it's interesting.
It's interesting.
I like it.
Super cool.
Okay.
It's
Ameera finds it interesting.
I wrote a paper on this too.
Lucia adores it. It's kind of cast aside a little bit. It's not
Mhm.
appreciated as much by Pratchett fans.
Well, I think that'd be, I guess, that makes sense to
I
me
think the
because he
themes
has
are
a lot of atheistic fans. He's this big secular writer. And Nation reads like it's his own debate on the existence of God. He was actually accused of converting
Yep.
after writing it. He denied it comically, but it makes sense when you read it because it
Yeah.
feels like a legitimate debate.
Yeah.
Where, and this is where it's super interesting, the character's actually interacting with the supernatural while he's doubting it.
Yep.
So it's like a character coming face to face with God, but his beliefs on what should be the case are keeping him from acknowledging it.
Yeah, it is a more accurate reflection of the dislike of God being the root of atheism, not the
Exactly.
disbelief in God. Yeah.
So I really love it. And I think it makes me feel like Terry Pratchett must have had some sin issues keeping him from God more than any sort of intellectual thing keeping him from God because he has all of it there.
Yeah.
Like he sees so much clearly just to deny it because he doesn't want to believe it.
Yeah, doesn't like it. It ultimately, this comes up over and over and over again. But post-Enlightenment and little modern Christians can still mess this up. And they think that intellectual assent is the same thing. Whereas the love of God is the issue.
Yeah.
It's like love and service of God as opposed to belief that he is in existence. So as is pointed out in the New Testament, even the demons believe, the devil is not an atheist. It's a question of hatred, of not love. And so when you have people like Christopher Hitchens, you have people like Terry Pratchett and Dawkins and others. Dawkins is realizing he's currently struggling with his affections. He's realizing that his affections are pulling him towards Christian culture. And that's a very dangerous place for him to be because he's actually seeing his emotional swing towards something where for Hitchens back in the day and for Pratchett, it was a dislike of God, a distaste for God. And Pratchett does kind of wrestle with that in a really interesting way in Nation. So I've always had a pretty significant fondness for the book Nation, even though it is an outlier among his books. So going back to Tolkien though, because everybody listening to this has read Tolkien, not everybody's read Terry Pratchett, and everybody should read Terry Pratchett.
They should get on that.
And I can also say, to your point about Captain Carrot and literal carrot, we do have a Captain Carrot in our family, which is my beloved wife Heather, your mother. She is
a carrot.
She is a carrot, meaning like she's very literal, and so she doesn't like Pratchett. I would read her sections. I'd be weeping with laughter. I would
she's
be
just like, what?
I would be physically rocked, and I would read it to Heather earlier in our marriage, and she would just stare at me like, "But I don't understand.
Marisol's like that.
Why is he saying that when it's not true?" Marisol's a little bit like that.
Oh yeah.
So maybe we have
because
maybe
when
we have two carrots.
you make a sarcastic joke, like something that's blatantly untrue, and we all snicker, and Marisol and Mom just look at you like, what?
What?
Really?
Like, really?
Really?
we always are constantly telling them that was a joke.
That
I was like,
a
I
joke.
can't tell.
Like,
We'll see.
well, if it's
We
blatantly
actually
false,
need to
then I
get
said it.
we need to get Mari into some Pratchett and really do the Pratchett test.
Yeah. See if she can handle.
See if she can handle. But back to Tolkien here. Lucia likes Frodo the best. Where are you on this?
I mean, I really like Frodo. I don't know if I'd say he's my favorite character. I like Faramir.
Yeah, Faramir is the best. Actually, correct answer. You got
I was like,
I didn't say Frodo was the best. I said he's an example
No, I get
of
it.
one of
That's
my
right.
favorite
Yeah.
tropes.
Fine.
Thank you.
Fine.
But Faramir is not my favorite.
who's your favorite?
Boromir.
Boromir.
Yeah.
Real king.
Favorite character, Lord of the Rings. Tom Bombadil, Tom Bombadillo.
Tom Bombadil.
Bright blue my jacket is,
to
and-
mind.
And his boots are yellow.
Gimli.
Gimli's great, yes.
I really
Gimli.
like Gimli, but mostly because I love the bro thing going on with Legolas.
Yeah, the Helm's Deep.
They're
thing.
besties.
Yeah. No, that one's good.
It's pretty
Gimli's
good.
good. So
Aragorn is great.
Faramir for you.
I think so, yeah.
And why?
I mean, I think I like his character because a big part of it is like fulfilling your role and duty, I think. So Lucy was just talking about how she likes, the unsung hero. He's also, in
He's
a way.
there too, yeah.
He's the one
Similar
who the
thing,
father
yeah.
doesn't love. But like
The actual noble.
he's the actual
Guy.
noble guy.
Yeah.
The memes are great.
Yeah. So
This
I
is
like that
incidentally,
aspect
can we
of his
just go ahead and say, and I'll hit and run here because a lot of
character.
our
Oh, no.
a lot of my listeners, it turns out, are Lord of the Rings movie fans. And so let me just
Gasp.
say one of the unforgivable sins for me was what they did with Faramir. But
I never made it that far.
We've watched the first half of the first movie like 3
Thrice.
different times. Never got through it. We
Just-
gave up.
Aragorn shows up with a tenor voice, and I'm like,
No,
pass.
we couldn't do it. His voice is so high.
you didn't like Vigo.
No,
I'm sorry.
he's
I like how
like
untainted
high-pitched.
you are. Well done.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, for me, one of the unforgivables was
Aragorn's also got that going on, the unsung hero thing
Yeah.
going on at the beginning.
Yep.
The Rangers protecting
Yeah.
the hobbits who don't even know they're being protected.
Yep. So Faramir is noble and he does what's right, and his father doesn't appreciate him, and then his father's going to murder him.
Fun
Yeah.
times.
Tough.
Yeah, good spoiler. Good,
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, good times there. I do think it's interesting though, when you talk about the unsung hero, what you see a lot is this hero being sung, but when they can be well gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'd be as if they built a statue of Frodo, in Hobbiton after he had left. So he is boated off, and then now we don't have to see him
Now
at the
we'll talk
pub
about it.
where he's being awkward and he doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
We see him with the weight of the world sitting on him, and he's kind of a buzzkill to be around. So
The
we can
buzzkill's
build we can build a statue to him after he's out. Now this is well and gone. It's actually kind of funny because like Churchill had a similar arc. Churchill was very, very disliked,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and not entirely unjustifiably. So it's not to say that the dislike was unmerited, because he was a naughty boy in many ways. But Churchill was a stinker, and he was a hard man and unappreciated, even though he did a lot of things. But he was a mess in a lot of ways. But then at the worst time, he stood up and took the brunt. He was the guy. And on the other side of that, especially on his exit, there was all this hagiography. He still was caustic and uncouth and funny and many other things, but that became part of the hagiography.
Mm-hmm.
Then we kind of had him over here in this statue. And so Churchill's over here and could be much appreciated. But we do this with the wild prophets. So the really uncouth guy who's fearless, does the right thing, and is not doing it for praise. He's not doing it to make anybody like him.
In fact, nobody does.
Nobody's going to like him any better than afterwards people build monuments.
I feel like when he's there's just a reminder that you were wrong.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
People don't like that.
And when he's gone, we can be right.
He's telling you not to do things.
A detail that I enjoy, I hang on to, and I haven't talked to many people about it, but in the Cupboards trilogy, the character of Freckles is this kid well after who's claiming to have been besties with Henry and to have been right there. There's always that guy.
Yep.
And it's funny. So I've had this, and people just do this. They do that kind of thing. I've had it happen to me. I'm not even dead yet. I'm not even gone. And I've had people tell me like, oh, I met your friend. I met this guy that
Your bestie.
grew up with you or whatever. And it's like, I have no idea who you're talking about. It's like, and they were in Moscow for 6 months once, and I just don't know who you're talking about. But there's this desire to be there and to, and not actually do the thing, not actually have the friendship or anything like that. But once you're gone,
I've already had that, and I'm not even famous somehow, right?
Then erect a statue. But when you're there, kind of dislike you. If you're a strong flavor, and I hope you both are, strong flavors, then that means it's easy to be disliked. It's easy for people to dislike you. You're not vanilla ice cream. And, they might not be people's favorite ice creams, but it doesn't offend people. But if you are pistachio ice cream, some people are just offended.
Because it's green.
Yeah, it's green.
Too green, in fact.
Call back. Yeah, so it's great characters are problematic. They are often problematic in their moment. So what are some other unsung hero examples that are good?
Well, Granny Weatherwax, but
okay.
The entire category of witches is like they're in Terry Pratchett, just the character idea is built off of the idea that people do the things that no one wants to do and no one thinks of as noble, and they never get thanked. So that's,
he does a weird wish fulfillment on the witches thing.
Mm-hmm.
How about non-Pratchett? Any other?
I'm thinking
Adam Douglas.
Doglish. Okay, detective fiction. Doglish. How so?
Because he's a murder detective. So especially with his relationships, you see him like with the girl he gets engaged to later in the books, Emma, where you have, because he's always surrounded by death and it's what he thinks about constantly. It's his job. It's his duty. It's what he does. And you have everyone not liking being around him because there's just this cloud of like, this is what he does. And so whenever he tries to interact with people who aren't part of that, they're always like kind of pull away. But then he writes his poetry about it. And so you have both. You have the like false praise coming in. Well, no one actually wants to know about what's actually going on. No one wants to know like Like they want to know, like, oh, are you inspired by it? All these different things, but they don't want to see the dead body. They don't want to they don't.
Is Douglas one of your favorite
Yes.
detectives?
He probably is my favorite detective.
Okay. Yeah, I like him. I like him as well.
I think you see the trope, like not extremely, but a bit with the Pevensey children in Narnia.
Okay.
And just when they do all the things in Narnia, but then just leave and
they're
have
gone. Yeah.
they have to be in a world where
They're just kids
nothing,
turning in papers.
they're just kids turning in papers. Whatever they did that was heroic doesn't matter anymore and doesn't affect them.
But it was still
In the
worth
same way?
doing.
Yeah. Even though it's like, it's not going to affect your life in a positive way. But that one's more an example of just nobody knowing. And you just have to be okay with like nobody knowing that you're a king or a queen of Narnia.
Not going around telling people.
Yeah.
No.
By the way,
Secrets
there's
that
an
are hard to
imaginary
keep.
world where I'm a big deal.
By the way,
I'm huge in Germany.
I'm royalty somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere else that you've never heard of that I may have made up.
Yeah, that always made me
Potentially.
sad when I was a kid reading Narnia. Because I'm like, they have to go back to just obeying teachers when they were royalty for years. That sounds awful.
For a lifetime.
A lifetime. That would suck.
It would be really funny,
Pretty
actually.
rough, actually.
It would be
That
really-
transition would be incredibly brutal. I am an
Yeah.
adult monarch. Like, boom.
And now you are
No.
a child in England.
In grade school.
In grade school.
Gosh.
Yeah. I would not.
That sounds so
thrive.
terrible, actually.
Okay, so we'll end with this. What is a book that if it could exist, like if we're going to run down the street to the bookstore and grab a book that you got to read this summer, that it was going to be the very, very, very best thing that you could possibly consume and hit that absolute bullseye, the perfect bullseye of the best read for you, what would that book be like?
What?
You don't understand?
No.
Like what
The
genre?
perfect book.
What?
No, just the perfect book. What would be the perfect summer read for you?
Well, it'd be fantasy.
Fantasy. And you don't dislike fantasy.
I don't.
obviously.
I like some fantasy.
But would it be fantasy? Would it be
No.
What?
Like, I think it would be just literature and like, but no, more in the, I don't know how to describe it.
Let me unpack this a little bit more for you. If it was like, man, I just found a book that hit me just like Peace Like a River. It's not Peace Like a River, but I just found something else that was that, like that tone, that quality, that aroma. Or I just found, Till We Have Faces, I didn't know existed. I just found
Okay.
another Jane Austen that's as good as Pride and Prejudice. Like say if you were to discover something like that would be the perfect read, what would it be?
This might not be what you're going for with this question.
Doesn't matter. It's a
But,
podcast. We can do whatever.
Okay,
Free reign.
Free reign. But I think that when I'm talking like popcorn, it can be just adventure or whatever. But books that really affected me and stuck with me are always books where a character or the main character is who I want to be.
Okay. Aspirational reading.
Yeah. But
Back to Pratchett.
of course I don't. Well, it includes.
joking. It's a joke.
Includes
Carry on.
some. It
Carry
includes
on.
some, but in just some aspect. I obviously love fantasy. I love adventure, but the plot can be like any number of things. But when there is an aspect to it that is just like I aspire towards that, because I feel that when I read things like Tolkien, where there's so many characters that have these great attributes or are learning these great attributes. And I just like, it's inspiring. And I want to be more like that in different ways. And I think that's part of the appeal of the unsung hero is I want to be that. I want to be the person who will do the right thing and do it for others regardless of what happens afterwards. So sure, I'd like a fantasy, but I love those characters. I love those stories that'll be inspirational. And you mentioned Till We Have Faces. That is one for me that I find very inspiring because Orwell is a character who is a good person. Like she, obviously, Mira's making a face.
I am.
She starts pretty bad.
Yeah.
She starts pretty selfish, but she has this journey and she becomes a good person and a good queen. But she never is letting go of how she, like in that second half where she's actually on her growth journey instead of wallowing in all her self-pity. She's never satisfied with herself, and she's always pushing herself, and she's living in an incredibly admirable way. And I love the ending of it where you see the little inscription by one of her subordinates, and you finally see what kind of person she was from other people's perspective, and she was the best queen they'd ever had. So I love reading that type of thing that just leaves me being like, I need to be better. This is not done.
So Till We Have Faces or Lord of the Rings, if you could find a book that hit like Till We Have Faces hit, that would be the dream book?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm split because no one to me is like as funny as Jane Austen. So it'd be pretty epic to like find someone who could be.
to find something
like
that was
hits the same as Jane, because she didn't write that many books.
Yeah.
So you just finish
As
them and
quippy
you're
as
like,
she?
yeah, she's so quippy and yeah, she's a genius. But like, so that would be nice. But I think a book
that would be nice.
That'd be nice.
That would be nice, you know.
I guess.
But I know you've read this, and I think you have too. A book that hits the same as Beautiful Ruins,
Yeah.
but is not Beautiful Ruins.
Yeah. And it's cleaner.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's part of
that'd
it.
be nice.
It is cleaner than beautiful. A
Edited.
clean, beautiful
It was
ruins.
good.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I said that was gonna be the last thing, but I lied.
You lied.
I was joking.
LOL.
How often in your own lives now, since you're the mighty, mighty age of 19
Yep, so old.
and the mighty, mighty age of 20,
Mm-hmm.
how often in your lives do you find yourselves making decisions or processing choices in terms of character decisions, overtly aware of I'm doing this because of the kind of character I want to be, or because I don't want to be that kind of character. I do not want to be this person, and I do want to be that kind of person. And so I'm going to do this thing, not because I want to, but because that's the kind of character I want to be in the story. How often does that come up?
Potentially every time I make the right decision.
I'd say often.
How often is that?
Once every couple weeks.
every fortnight or so? Once a fortnight? She loves fantasy. We're going to talk in terms of fortnights.
Jane
So-
Austen.
Yeah, true. So every fortnight or so it comes up when you make the right decision.
Not more frequent.
Okay. But how often is that part of your thought process?
I would say often. Not every day, but like more than once a week.
More than once a week. Is that something that you see in any of your, in your generation? Is that common at all?
No, absolutely not.
What is more normal? And among good girls too. I'm not looking for you to throw anybody under the bus, but
I don't think
remember there's a
that
microphone.
Gen Z
Yeah,
is
like-
very forward thinking
Okay.
as a group. I have heard /read /seen on the interwebs a lot of antagonizing of your older self as if it's a different person. Like in the topic of tattoos or something, and people are like, you sure you'll like that when you're older? And it's very like, that's older me's problem. If they don't like it, they're lame. It's just like this weird disassociation with the future. And there is the opposite. I do know some overthinkers who like are just planning for the future, but don't understand how like every step they're currently taking gets you there.
Yeah.
But overall, I just think that Gen Z does a very simple pleasure pain calculus in the moment.
I
Okay.
think part of it is just they don't treat stories like role models. Like they don't.
Yeah.
They don't think they matter.
I think they watch things for fun. I think it's all entertainment.
Sure. But also,
So I mean, sure, I think it affects them, but I also think they don't think like it does.
I'm willing to bet that if we took people who didn't think that way and we found the things they found most entertaining, they would still probably be improved if they imitated the protagonists of those stories more. If they actually thought more of themselves as a character in a narrative and with the ability to try to become one type of character or another. That seems to be the thing that's missing the most from that calculus. So even if they're watching not great kind of popcorny stuff.
If only they thought of themselves as being a protagonist.
Yeah.
But in the right way. See, I feel like this isn't just Gen Z.
Or just a character,
think this
not even a
applies to
protagonist.
millennials as well. Just the last two generations.
What if we just said humans?
Humans, let's go with that. But I don't know if it applies to everyone.
Okay.
Is thinking of yourself as the protagonist in a wish fulfillment story. That is the more common thing, where I've joked before, like, I wish I was the only variable in my life. Like, I want everyone else to be accommodating and me allowed to, like, obviously you can't live like that, but a lot of people do live like that, where they think
anybody who ever flakes ever
exactly.
is thinking
I'm
that way.
Everyone else gets to adjust.
Yep, I had
and
to
so
flake.
the people who think of themselves as a character, like I'm the main character, right? They're thinking of themselves as a main character in a wish fulfillment where everything needs to accommodate them, not as Frodo.
I think
If you thought of yourself as Frodo, where like you're going to go through pain and you're going to be have
Unappreciated.
character development, and it's going to suck for most of it.
I think they act like that. I don't think they think like it. I don't think everyone thinks of themselves as the main character. I think they just think of themselves.
I would also, incidentally, I think it's yes. Yeah. that was nice. That was deft.
Very tidy.
I tried.
How long were you thinking about it?
Just now.
That was good.
Out.
Off the cuff, quippy. Quip.
Maybe I'm the new Jane Austen.
Yes, finally.
About time.
She's
Where you
back.
been?
But it's, so I think, though, it is very, very healthy to think of yourself as a secondary character and try to be a good secondary character as opposed to a good protagonist. Although to be a good protagonist is the one who's willing to be a secondary character. Douglas is coming along trying to bring justice and solve murders. He's not thinking about living his dream.
Yeah.
No.
It's all of this outward facing service. It's not self-service. The problem with people who think of themselves as protagonists is they look to be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
They think that they're supposed to be on some kind of heroic journey. You can think of yourself as a protagonist if it's a good protagonist, because good protagonists are heroic and sacrificial and noble.
Yeah.
But secondary characters, being a good secondary character,
more helpful frame of mind.
Frequently more helpful for humans.
I also think not only, this might just be me, but thinking of yourself as a secondary character, but also think of someone else as the main character, like just puts a different perspective on it. So I know this, like, I had a weird like shift in perspective when I read a book called Christina Lavransdatter, I think is what it's called. And it's a really long book. It's like longer than Anna Karenina, and it's like a Norwegian version. And super, super Catholic and weird in lots of parts. But
Thanks, a good Protestant girl.
With that footnote, it was like very interesting because you have this character who's kind of an Anna Karenina character. And
all our Catholic listeners are excited now. They're like, ooh, good recommend. Go ahead.
I like it. But she like sins as a kid, and you see her with this guy, and you see the whole transition of her growing up into being a woman with children. And she's the main character of the story the whole time. But then you see her daughter and her son like go off and do the same thing that she did. And so they have become the main character of their, like they are her main characters now. And that's the way she's seeing them. And I just thought that was a very interesting way to do it, because you're seeing, like, if you think of your mom and you're like, oh, like I'm the kid. Yeah. Like I haven't seen all of this stuff that came before and what made her her. Like I didn't see the rest of her plot, which is what it was just an interesting way to be like, oh, like maybe I should be a little
perspective shift.
Yeah. Like realize that she actually is a main character.
I do think
in a lot of ways.
And you're an offshoot.
Yeah.
And I'm an offshoot from that, but also that as a woman who'd become a mother, like you do become a secondary character in other ways. But like a kid should see their mother as having her own plot. And I think a mother should see their kids as having their own plot.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Everybody think of themselves as the spinoff.
Yeah.
You definitely had said a number of times in our wee years, what type of character do you want to be in the story? It definitely is a question that come up, and it wasn't always helpful because
it was too.
It wasn't always helpful because little me could be like, what if I want to be the sassy one? Thank you very much. I don't want to be the good kid. They're a boring character. Obviously, that's.
I will say this though. Those good kids were boring characters.
That's fair. But the thing that you said when we were small that I think hit me the best was kind of similar to that perspective shift was who do you want to be in their story?
Yeah.
Where I was being grouchy at the little Shamoofus. And the question was, who do you want to be in his story? When he's older and he's successful because he's driven and he's going to make it because he's a worker. When he's being asked about his childhood, about his life, about his story, who are you? Yeah. Like, are you the one who is shoving him down? And
how does he describe his sisters?
I don't want to know. But, nah, just kidding. Love Shay J. But that was the more helpful thing in a lot of situations was being like, oh, I'm not just me and they're all here.
I'll say this, though.
I am someone to them.
This is a very funny thing you brought up. Asking you when you were little, you were very little when we had this conversation. I remember it when you were like, you wanted to be the
spicy,
the sassy, spicy character. That was helpful. It was very helpful to talk to you about it because when I asked you what kind of character do you want to be, you were like, well, and I have an answer. I have an answer, and this is the character I want to be. And it was like, okay. And we talked a lot about that. And that's why I talked to you about what kind of character you want to be in other people's lives. But it's also why we started pushing particular books and reading and story time and the diet of narratives of what kind of characters we needed to give you more characters to even admire and like. Mm-hmm. So that was pre-Tolkien. You were not yet, you had not yet even gone through Tolkien when you were talking about wanting to be the little...
Because at that point, a lot of the good characters I read were boring.
I want to be the snotty one. And we basically had...
more interesting.
And we basically only really, at that point, you'd had little storybooks, Pixar. Mm-hmm. We had there wasn't a lot in your catalog. But it was very funny. It was a very funny thing for dad and daughter convo to be like, okay.
Wait, which characters was she imitating out of curiosity? Like, who were the snotty characters?
I don't remember. I just remember having this conversation.
We had it a couple times. But the point is, there's always that, it's a pretty common thing. There's always that mouthy, that she liked being the mouthy side character. Yeah. Or the absolute lone wolf with no friends, burn it down.
Which didn't really fit my personality, but I still wanted it.
Yeah. And so in terms of what kind of stories we really pushed and pursued and read and provided, what kind of diet we provided and further conversations about it, it was very helpful because you were quite self-aware about it. And it was a very funny piece of news when you're a child. It's like, that snotty the
unbearable
character,
one.
The unbearable snotty one. That's what I'm aiming for.
And boy, am I hitting it.
Yeah. Boom.
Nailed it.
Touchdown. Yeah. Well, girls, thanks for casting a pod with me. This has been SASF number something or other.
I'm sure it was.
I don't know.
That something sounds accurate.
And I should make you say that, Lucia.
Huh?
What number podcast this is?
At least 11.
At least 11. This has been SASF number 11 at least.
I feel like it's somewhere over 150, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like 150.
He's done a lot of these.
Yeah. First one with my daughters, though. And we'll have to have you back because you're fun. Yay. So go read more and come back with even better things to say. This has been SASF. See you later. When Brian Cole's back, and we'll talk about Children of Men. Peace.
Imagine the well-read man. Do you see a machine dressed in tweed, gorging on information? This book is not about becoming that kind of reader. The well-read man wakes up and consults with Moses on his way to work.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which hath brought thee out of the land.
He sips his coffee and ponders the wisdom of Hannibal's elephants crossing the Alps. He turns furrow-browed philosophers upside down and takes their lunch money. He changes his oil and deliberates with Peter Drucker about effective management practices. He regales his wife with the tale of Monet's water lilies in the gardens at Giverny. He sings with Sandra Boynton as his toddler's eyes grow heavy. This book is about becoming that man. Be as human as you can be. Learn how to read a book.